Good morning, welcome. Hello everybody, welcome to Croydon and Croydon University Centre and our taster session as part of our Next Generation series of events that we're running all this week to enable you to find more out about all the courses we run here at Croydon, the Croydon University Centre. Thanks very much for joining us. I've got a great group of people with me today because today we're talking about one of our new subjects. Very excited to be able to be talking about our adult nursing degree that we are bringing to Croydon in partnership with the University of Roehampton. And this morning we're joined by colleagues from Roehampton. We're going to be able to tell you all about what that course is going to be like. I'd like to introduce them to you. So first of all, we've got Joe Rickson, who is head of nursing, head of this new course. So welcome, Joe. We'll be hearing from you in a little while. We have Michelle with us, and Michelle is a senior lecturer on the course. Michelle McBride. Hi, Michelle. And Michelle's going to be running a taster session for you this morning to give you a feel for the type of subject and content that you would be learning if you were to enrol on this course. And then I'm also delighted that we've got two current students from Roehampton with us. We've got Callum and Natasha. Hello to you both. And Callum and Natasha are currently studying. Callum is doing mental health as a nursing student, and Natasha is doing the adult nursing course. So we really look forward to hearing from both of you, and it's a great opportunity for those of you that are watching live. You've got specific questions that you might want to know about the course. It's always great to talk to someone who's currently doing it, is experiencing it, rather than maybe hearing it from a lecturer. So all those niggly little questions that you might have, do feel free to ask. Now, if you are watching us this morning live, you can talk to us in the normal way now that we're all very used to on Zoom. You can do that either by chatting to us using the chat function, or you can drop a question into the question and answer box and we will ask your questions for you. At the end of each section, there will be opportunity for you to ask questions. We'll keep pausing. So if there is something that someone has said that maybe you need further clarification on, then obviously you can do that. Now, this is part of a whole week of activity. We've got loads happening all week. It might not just be adult nursing you're interested in. You might be interested in one of the other courses that we do, or indeed you might want some help or advice about funding, or maybe about specialist services that you might be needing. And we have the team on hand here all week across a variety of sessions to answer those questions for you. So do feel free to take a look at the schedule, which I'll share with you a little bit later. But for now, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to talk you through what life is like at the Croydon University Centre. So as you know, or you might not know, we are very, very accessible. We're a unique campus in many ways because we're actually part of the Croydon College Group, and we're situated right in the heart of central Croydon. And I really just want to highlight sort of the top 5 reasons why people do choose to study with us. So first of all, we are very accessible, as I say, situated right in the middle of East Croydon Station. We have the East Croydon Rail line and the tram link, literally a 5-minute walk away from the campus. And students will also get a 30% discount off of TfL fares. So that's definitely something to look into if you're needing to commute via TfL to get to us. Now, we do offer a wide range of courses from full-time degrees to one-year HNCs in a variety of subjects, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in just a while. We offer some of the lowest tuition rates for university degrees in and around London, and we're very proud that we've managed to keep our university fees down, particularly at this time. And we offer top quality courses that are validated and quality assured by external agencies such as Roehampton, who obviously we have with us today, Pearson's and City and Guilds. So you do walk away with a qualification, an award from one of the top, from one of London's top 10 universities. And lastly, but not least, we offer a wraparound student support programme to all of our students. Our teaching environment here is very supportive and inclusive, and we offer a fantastic student experience. So moving on to the next slide, just telling you a little bit about our teaching and learning here at the university. Now, we do have experienced lecturers, and our academics are subject experts. Now, many of them have many years of industry experience, which benefits you when you're learning on the course. And they obviously bring a wealth of knowledge to the classroom. And you can expect to have your course delivered through a mix of learning environments on campus and online. And here at the University Centre, we look forward to welcoming students back into our lecturer rooms, but we will also be continuing with an element of online learning. As we know, we've all learned how to do it now, and it does work very, very effectively. So it will be a mix of on-campus and online learning. Now, personal tutors, we have a personal tutoring scheme whereby you're assigned a personal tutor at the start of your course to track your academic progress. And you and your tutor will sit down and work together on targets and action plans for you. And you have 3 formal sessions throughout the year, but you can always request to have more. As I say, we're very accessible, we're very open, we're really keen to make sure that you do have as much interaction as you personally need to help you through the course. Now, you will also have access to our student support services. Now, they give advice and guidance on wellbeing and financial matters. And if you have learning difficulties, disabilities, or ongoing health conditions, please don't worry. We do have a dedicated additional learning support team who will be able to set up a reasonable adjustment plan for you. Now, depending on your circumstances, you may be able to get extra time in exams or extensions of deadlines. It's really worth having a chat to our ALS team, see how you can apply for these RAs, reasonable adjustment plans. On to the next slide, please. So what about student life? What else do we have on offer? Well, as I say, the University Centre is located here centrally in Croydon. We're on the 3rd floor of the main campus building, and we have dedicated classrooms, PC labs, quiet study spaces, and lecture theatres for our University Centre students. And you will, as I say, have 24/7 access to our virtual learning environment. And you'll also have access to our online library. Now, our Learning Resource Centre is spread over 3 floors with a subject librarian available on each floor to help you with your research projects and assignment resource searches. And the 3rd floor is reserved for University Centre students, and it's a quiet floor for you to study in. So don't feel if you're coming here that you might be worried that you'll be part of the wider college. There is very much a dedicated space for you. Now, the library has late openings on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays and Thursdays for you. And we have a dedicated HE common room, which is only open to University Centre students. It's got a small kitchenette, so you can use that to warm up your lunch or have a cup of tea, and there's soft seating. And it's just a great place to relax with friends. Now, on site, we do have a college. It's called we have a cafe. It's called the Urban Deli. And you can sit down or have a takeaway or anything from pizzas to vegan curries. And it also serves great coffee. But remember, we're also conveniently close to a whole row of cafes, coffee shops, supermarkets. And of course, let's not forget, Croydon is lucky to have a box park literally 2 minutes across the road from the college for your after-class socialising. So, let's just tell you a little bit about our courses. These are our courses that we do today. As I say, we are talking about adult nursing, but other things that you can study here: early childhood studies, public health and social care, business and management, criminology, psychology and social justice, and then some HNCs, construction and the built environment, engineering, business and management, and teacher training. So I know that you're eager to hear more about nursing, but that was really just to let you know what else there is on offer here. And as I say, we have sessions coming out throughout the week on those. So just also remember that our student support sessions are here later today and tomorrow. So if there's anything that you want specifically to have a one-to-one conversation with someone about, whether that be about finance or wellbeing, safeguarding, the team will be online here later today for you to have that one-to-one conversation. So if there's a personal matter you want to discuss, you can do that with them. And also the same thing applies with the finance team. We're always happy to talk to you about finances. We do not want finance to be an issue for you and maybe a reason why you don't choose to come to us. So do feel free to join those sessions, and I'll pop them in the chat a little bit later. Finally, let's just remind you how you can reply. I think first of all, just remember to think about, what is your goal? What is the right course for you? And most importantly, do you meet the entry criteria? And obviously today is about giving the opportunity to ask those questions to our experts who are here. But as I say, you can do that through the advice sessions later as well. And how to apply? Well, you can apply via UCAS, obviously, or you can apply directly to us. UCAS is still open for applications, but you do need to firm your offer up before the 10th of June. So apply via UCAS by the 10th of June, and we're always happy to discuss your needs via our admissions email address, which is admissions@croydon.ac.uk. So I think that's enough from me. Thank you very much for listening to my overview. I think most importantly now, I want to hand this session over to the team from Roehampton. And we're going to start off with Michelle, who's going to talk to you a little bit and give you a little bit of a taster session about what the nursing degree is like. So thanks for listening to me. And hi, Michelle, over to you.
Thank you. I'll just get my PowerPoint up. Can we all see the first slide of that?
Yep.
Yep. So my name's Michelle McBride. I'm one of the senior lecturers at Roehampton, but I also have as one of my roles admissions lead, which is why I get to come and be invited to do things like this. So any particular questions around the admissions processes kind of via Roehampton, I'm usually the person to come to. So I'm just going to go through a few slides to give you the outline of what our course will be like when you receive it at Croydon in September, and a few other sort of slides around admissions and what to put in a personal statement, those kind of things. So hopefully that will kind of answer a few questions, and then Joe's going to do a kind of teaching session as if you would receive it when you're enrolled on the nursing course. So hopefully that will be quite fun. So the session here, we're going to look, I'll kind of skip over the background because I think that's already been covered in the previous little presentation, and also probably the teaching and support facilities have been covered too. So I'll probably go straight to talking about the adult nursing programme, a little bit around placements, a couple of tips around how to apply and what to expect at interview process, and then a little bit of information around fees and funding, because that's usually quite gratefully received. As you are aware, if you're sort of around Croydon College, you will have seen the kind of promotion of the adult nursing course. It was provisionally approved by the NMC back in March, which was quite a positive event, and they were really impressed with the way the course is going to run. And the kind of essence is around providing a local healthcare workforce for Croydon. So I know a lot of people around Croydon are very excited about the course. At the moment, we're in the process of recruiting for the team. So we've got Jo Rickson here, who's head of nursing. So you're kind of split in two parts, aren't you, Jo? You're at Croydon some of the time and Roehampton some of the rest of the time. And this week already, we will be interviewing for some new nursing lecturers and a new technician. So by the time the course starts in September, we'll have a brand new team ready to go. You'll have a new clinical simulation centre, which I think Joe's had a view of, actually been onto the kind of footprint of it and had a look at the building processes, which will match the one we've got at Roehampton campus already. So I've got some photos to show you of that. And then being a Croydon University Centre student, you will have the benefit of on-campus facilities and student support there, but also be entitled to some of the provisions that are around on the Roehampton campus. So kind of get the best of both worlds. So these are computer generated images of what the new simulation centre will look like. As I say, it will kind of mirror what we have on the Roehampton campus at the moment, which we use all the time for teaching. So there will be a ward which will kind of mock up a real clinical ward that you would see if you went into a hospital, with hospital beds and clean utility areas, all the provisions for supplies and stores and a kind of level access bathroom, etc. And then there will also be some kind of flexible spaces which can be used for community teaching. If you've had a look at the profile for the course at Roehampton, you'll have noticed that we focus on delivering care outside of hospital as well as inside of hospital. So we teach you the importance of working in GP practices or in care homes, patients' homes, outpatients facilities, and hopefully give you the skills to be able to deliver that nursing care in other environments. Although if you choose to stay working in a hospital, that's fine, you'll be equipped for that too. but we're giving you the broader picture. And then this slide shows the kind of the real working processes that we have over at Roehampton. So the slide on the left there is the ward with the profiling beds and the curtains and a few students in the background having, I think that was probably one of the open days we had when we were still able to do those on campus. And then the middle photo there is actually myself in one of our clinical simulation rooms in our flexible spaces. So we've got that one set up as a GP surgery. And we've been using exactly that setup for some of the second years within their simulations this week. And then the pictures on the edge there are of the setup as community rooms. So if you start and enrol on the BSc Adult Nursing programme in Croydon in September, you'll be doing exactly the same course as the Roehampton campus. So it'll be exactly the same curriculum, exactly the same balance of practice, theory, placements. You'll be receiving core lectures at the same time as some of the Roehampton students, the ones that are delivered remotely via platforms such as Blackboard, Collaborate and Zoom. But you'll be having your face-to-face teaching, obviously, on the Croydon campus with the dedicated staff for that team. But you'll be sharing the learning all the way across, and that will have great benefits. As I've said, our course is community focused, so we make sure that you get a breadth of placements across settings that aren't just hospital environments. We've also focused really heavy on the parity of esteem, which is not a phrase that everyone's aware of. We held a kind of conference symposium a few weeks ago looking particularly at those themes. And for those of you that aren't quite familiar with it, when we talk about the parity of esteem, we talk about equal emphasis on physical and mental health. So even though you're doing a course in adult nursing and you may be concentrating on adults that have physical health conditions, we need to be equally mindful of their mental health, and then vice versa. So if a patient has a primarily mental health diagnosis, we need to be really focused on their physical needs as well. And our course is really heavily involved in ensuring that kind of equal balance throughout the 3 years. You'll also have a big focus on public health and health promotion. I'm sure if you've looked at what's going on in the news and recent kind of health documents, there's a big emphasis on keeping people well, keeping people out of hospital, trying to prevent people becoming unwell with long-term conditions. So we have one of the core modules in year 1 that all students do is focusing on public health and health promotion. And although you're doing an adult nursing course, it's not just on adults. We're looking from the cradle to the grave, so everything to do with kind of babies and small children, teenagers, right up to older people, and then across the kind of sections of society. So we look at patients and individuals that have mental health conditions, learning disabilities, homeless health, and a kind of target groups that are difficult to reach. And then throughout the course, you'll be looking at advanced communication skills. So as well as the kind of basics around non-verbal and verbal communication, we'll kind of touch on counselling skills and a bit around sort of CBT therapies, and then providing you with the kind of grounding so that you have the technical skills to use the kind of equipment that you will have on site in your teaching facilities, but also out there in the real world of healthcare. And that's the same for the digital health. We give you some awareness of things like telehealth, telemedicine, how we can, particularly in the last year, how we've used digital health to help with our diagnosis and management of clients in communities. And those last 3 at the bottom there kind of relate to some of the modules you'll be looking at in your 3rd year, but it's around how we ensure good quality services for patients, how we mitigate risks and do assessments for things like that. There'll be a big focus on leadership, and that won't be just in year 3, that will be through the other 2 years that you'll be studying. A focus on integrated care as well, which is, it depends where your placements are as to how you'll be exposed to that, but some places are integrating hospital and community care. Some other areas are integrating mental health and physical health services. And that's the way forward for providing seamless service care for service users. So we look at that, and we look around developing your leadership skills and developing yourself as a lifelong learner, because it doesn't end when you finish your 3-year degree course. You'll be learning for life, and preparing you to support others in that way. So to become preceptors and to become practice supervisors, practice assessors for the new generations of students. Placements is always what students are kind of mostly interested in, and although the placements will be managed by the University of Roehampton by our nursing placement team, which is expanding. We have just had one very busy lady for the last 2 years, and now her team's expanding, which is great. Loosely, placements are allocated on where people live, and I'm guessing people studying at Croydon University Centre will be local to Croydon, and therefore will probably get most of their placements around Croydon, but will be expected to travel maybe short distances to make sure you get that whole breadth of experience around out of hospital care and primary care. And as we speak, our practice lead is making other partnerships with trusts local to Croydon, such as Bromley. One of the other opportunities you get at the end of year 2 is to do an elective placement. Sadly, that's been a bit restricted this year due to kind of travelling and the pandemic, but fingers crossed, hopefully by the kind of next summer, we might have some more options open. And you're guided to the kind of things you can choose for that elective placement, and there's support processes in place, but it's a student-led procedure. So that's at the end of year 2. And then in the future, there may be some apprenticeships opportunities, but that's kind of in the development stages at the moment. Just a few pictures here of some of the kind of previous options that students have taken for electives. So some students have used organisations to go abroad. So you've got projects abroad on the left there. Some of the others are called International Volunteers Association or Plan My Gap Year. So for those that have got a few pennies in the bank, that's a really good option. But there's plenty of UK-based options too. So there's a photo there of someone helping with the homeless health charity. So you've just had some information already around applying. So we don't need to sort of rest on this slide too much. If your application is later than the date stated on the previous presentation, you'll end up going through to clearing. Which isn't kind of a total barrier, but it just means you're kind of in the next set of rotations. Just to kind of add, really, to spend a bit of time when you're writing your personal statement within your application, because that sometimes can be the deciding factor for students that may be a bit borderline on their qualifications. So when you put that personal statement together, make sure it's well researched and well written. In terms of kind of grammar and spelling, but you need to really think about the content of that. You know, put on that little piece of paper why you want to be a nurse, what's inspired you to take up this career, what qualities you might have and what you might be able to offer to the kind of nursing community, and then whether you've had any experience yourself. It doesn't need to be kind of official paid work as a kind of healthcare assistant. It could be something to do with family and friends, but it kind of contextualize your passion. If you're successful enough to get to interview, we're doing all our interviews still online at the moment. So they're kind of a 20-minute on Zoom with 6 questions. So you need to kind of prepare for those. A couple of other things that you are important before you be offered a place. You have to have a clear DBS. Any convictions must be declared, and if there is anything that comes up on that would need to be discussed, and that's something that you need to pay for. And then occupational health clearance is something that we pay for. You need to be cleared by occupational health to be physically fit to undertake the course, and that includes having some immunisations, which is covered in the cost for your original appointments. Just a few pointers around the fees and financial support. Obviously, we are fully aware that undertaking a nursing degree is not a cheap process, and there are some financial supports in place to help that. So the UK fees and international fees are as stated on the screen here. You're entitled to your tuition fees and maintenance loans from the student loan company, the same as any other university student. But because you're a healthcare student and a nursing student, you're entitled to some extra payments. So the Learning Support Fund will be giving students a minimum of £5,000 payment per year. And that's obviously, you don't have to pay that back. That's a training grant. And then also, because you're a healthcare student, under the same Learning Support Fund, you're entitled to some additional money. And this could be if you're a parent, or for some extra travel support to help you attend placements. And they also have some hardship funds. And then as you're a Roehampton student, you'd be entitled to some of the other bursaries and supports that are available. So if you think you'd be eligible, you'd need to kind of ask specifically around whether you meet the criteria. But there's also a couple of scholarships that have been offered for this year, one from Roehampton Progression Support Scholarship and one from Croydon College Scholarship. So again, there's set criteria for those, but if you're eligible, that's some extra money to help you through your journey. And just to say, we'll be really eager to have you as part of our kind of future generation of history makers. So the photos you can see here are our current September 2020 cohorts. I think Callum and Natasha might be able to spot themselves somewhere in here if they look closely. We've been teaching on campus in facilities where students have had to be socially distanced and wearing PPE over the last sort of 6-8 months. So that's why they look a bit kind of as if they've all had an argument with each other, but perhaps a bit more smiley when we manage to get outside for the photos. So it would be great to think this time next year we could have a photo of you guys at the Croydon campus, being the next kind of pioneers for nursing in that direction. So that's the end of that part of the presentation. I'm not sure if there's any questions before we move on to Joe's sample teaching.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I've got some questions. There are some people watching, which is fantastic. And just to really reiterate that this is a great opportunity for you to ask those questions, and particularly if you're considering applying, or maybe you're in the application process at the moment and you've got an interview coming up. I know there's some interviews taking place this week. This is a really good opportunity to talk to the people that are going to be involved with the selection process. If you've got any queries about that, do feel free. Now is your opportunity to ask those questions. You don't have to ask them live. You can type them in to the chat or the Q&A function, but do take advantage of that. Michelle, I just wanted to reiterate, pick up on those fees, because actually there sounds like there's a huge amount of support, financial support available, which perhaps not everybody realises. You see that sort of 9,000 plus tuition fee, but actually by the sounds of it, by the time you've whittled that down with the various grants, it's probably going to be a fairly insignificant cost. Would that be fair?
I think the tuition fees will always be there, but I think it's and you don't start paying those back until you're employed and you're earning a certain amount of money, and then they take a certain percent of your salary. But I think it's the life costs that people struggle with, and that's where those bursaries and scholarships help, I think. I mean, you're probably best to speak to the real students that are sitting in the room to get an honest flavour of where they help. I mean, historically, nursing used to have bursaries, and that was kind of taken away back in 2016-17. So we have had a little gap where students have really struggled. So this £5,000 minimum annual grant, sort of training grant, has been a godsend, really, to help the students.
Callum, Natasha, do either of you want to come in on that particular point at this stage?
Hi. I think it is interesting, the amount of money and support that we do get, and I'm in a good position personally with my finances. I am a parent, so I do get support there as well. The Learning Support Fund has definitely helped, I think, where you do get that £5,000 standard flat out, and then you get extra money if you're a parent and if you're doing certain things like mental health courses and certain other areas. So that's definitely a benefit, and it's all very manageable. But yeah, you just have to budget yourself, I suppose, and just be very, very careful, mindful with what you're doing with your money. And I don't feel that I'm having a problem. I'm a mum. I've got 4 kids, and I'm doing pretty okay at the moment. Everything's fine. So it's about just being aware of what you do with your money and how it works for you, really. But I think it's a lot better. Definitely getting a lot better.
That's great. And Callum, similar experience? You're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's pretty much the same as what Natasha's already said. It's just about sort of, making sure that you're quite careful with your money. But I mean, I've not had any financial problems at all. And I mean, I know that things like placement might be a worry sometimes, people having to travel. But I believe that you can claim some of that back for the travel expenses. So, I mean, yeah, the Learning Support Fund really does help. And it's good as well that they sort of break it down into smaller chunks. So you don't get it all at once, you get sort of bits each term.
So that obviously helps the budgeting, not being given it all at once. Definitely helpful. That's really great. Thanks very much for that input. Misha, just the final point, just picking up on that application process. Now, I know that this course will be oversubscribed. So the importance of, I guess, getting your application in early. You're already in the sort of process of interviewing. Is that right?
Yeah, we've been interviewing. We've kind of mixed up our Croydon and our Roehampton applicants for interviews, but yeah, we've been interviewing all the way along, interviewing lots of people. So yeah, to get in early.
Yeah, no, that's great. And anyone that's obviously watching either live or the recorded version, just bear that in mind. And I guess it's like any application, just get an application in, because that gets you into the system, and will help you through the process, presumably. So you may not be 100% sure it's what you want to do, but get an application in so that you can start going down that line of exploring the options, presumably.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing to probably just to focus in on is being prepared for that interview. I've done hundreds of interviews now online over the last sort of year and a bit, and you can definitely see the students that have thought about what they're going to be about. I mean, we can't tell you the questions, but you can kind of expect the sorts of themes that are going to come up if you're going to sell yourself. And some students really kind of come to that interview and aren't very well prepared. So I think you really need to sit down for a couple of hours and think about the kind of things you might be asked and have some pointers ready.
And I guess particularly because it is on Zoom, because it's not as easy on Zoom, maybe to get yourself across in the same way. And if you're not used to being on this platform, it can make things a little bit stilted. So, maybe taking a bit more time out because of the current circumstances would be important. Yeah. So thank you for that.
I did notice, sorry, there was one question in the chat around the placements. Somebody asked if they could have a bit more detail. And I think to clarify there, in order to register with the NMC, you have to have done, for our course, 2 hospital placements. So one is medical, one's surgical. A primary care placement, a community nurse placement, and then something that we call interface, which kind of captures lots of other things like hospices and nursing homes and kind of other specialist nursing facilities. And whilst we hope that if you're doing the Croydon course, you'll be able to do those in Croydon, but we may not have, say, enough GP practice placements, for example, and so you may have to travel a little further to get all of those experiences. We try really hard to make sure people don't have to travel more than an hour and a half. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to kind of stick to that. But just to be mindful.
What point did the placements come into the course? I mean, at what point do you go out on the placement? Yeah,
so the first placement's a good question, actually, because we're slightly different to other universities. The first placement is right in the first sort of term. So you start at university, you do 6-7 weeks theory, and then you're out on your first placement. A lot of other universities don't do their first placement till the kind of after Christmas type time. So yeah, you get a proper taste of real nursing early on.
Yeah, goodness. I'm just bringing Natasha and Callum in there. I mean, that sounds quite daunting. Maybe within the first sort of 6 months of being on the course, how have you found the placement work? Callum, you're in your you're just about to complete your first year, I think, aren't you?
Yeah. So to be honest, like at Roehampton, they've been really supportive. And when we, our first sort of 6 weeks before we went out to placement, it is quite intense. Like, you do have a lot of material to cover, like your manual blood pressures, you've got all your sort of oximetry, temperatures, all sort of like the basic sort of necessities for nursing. But they really do give you that sort of those skills sessions where you can really focus on it and you can take your time, and they're happy to go through it as many times as you need. And then I think, I don't know, when I first went to placement, like the first few days, I was really nervous, like before I actually got there. But then I think that, when you're first introduced to everybody in the placement area, you just automatically build that confidence. And I felt confident straight away, and I just, I went straight in there, and it was an amazing experience. What
was your first placement? What was that to do?
So I kind of got thrown in the deep end a little bit. My first one was psychiatric intensive care unit. So it's sort of dealing with patients who have got sort of psychosis, bipolar, schizophrenia, all sorts of mental disorders. But it was a really rewarding placement, and I'm really happy I got it for my first one.
And just to be clear, you're actually studying mental health nursing as your specific subject, so that's quite a specific. It's presumably not something that you would necessarily go on as part of the general nursing. Would that be right, Misha?
Well, you might, because we do make sure that every adult nursing student gets an insight placement as part of this kind of parity of esteem. So half of the first year adults have had those so far. So it was 2 weeks, I think, for them, because we've kind of struggled with capacity with the pandemic and things. So they get an insight taster. So perhaps not intensive, intensive care, psychiatric intensive care, but definitely it's really important that they have that kind of dip into the mental health field. And the mental health students do the same in the adult, but they do a longer placement.
Natasha, tell us a little bit about your experience out in the field. I'm sorry, what year are you?
I'm the same as Callum. So we're in the same cohort. So we're nearly at the end of our first year now. So I think placements being so early as well, actually, whilst it might seem quite frightening, it's actually a really good experience. And I think in some ways it benefits you more, because you're learning all about communicating and things like that within university and within your first initial written modules and things like that. And actually to communicate to a multidisciplinary team, the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare assistants, the dietitians, anybody else who is around, and learn from them and watch them, is actually a real benefit to you as a student, because you're picking things up and you're learning and you're developing your own confidence and skills. So I found that a real benefit. And the university were fantastic in that. Unfortunately, my second placement, there just wasn't the capacity for a few of us to actually have a proper assessed placement. So instead, they gave us the option to do COVID vaccinations, and I absolutely loved it. So I've had a brief experience in insight placement, separate to Callum, for example, who did an assessed placement, where I actually learn a skill, was competent in a skill, then had autonomy within that skill, and have that extra little bit of insight for my little nursing toolbox as I go forward. So I feel like that's really gained my confidence some more. And I feel like it's a really good experience. Just get out there, and you can then put everything back into your writing and learning generally, and you become really quite confident in what you're saying, and then you can also learn from each other, which is quite nice. So for example, I've spoken to Callum quite a lot. We're good friends, and I learn so much from what he's experienced. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And you just pick up these things. So it's a really, really good experience.
And interesting that you've had that experience through a period of lockdown where we've all been, communication hasn't been the easiest, but clearly for something like nursing, it's such a key part of the toolkit to be a good communicator.
There has been a huge amount of challenges with COVID. I'm not going to lie, and actually learning with masks as well. It's really, really difficult, and you can now really appreciate how difficult it is for some of the population to understand with masks and how to communicate with them. And in actual fact, you incorporate that in every aspect of your life. I think how you relate to your own family, your friends, you kind of appreciate the difficulties now. So it's a really interesting experience.
We've got a question actually, which is sort of relevant, because the question is about, is there a possibility of receiving lectures on campus or is it online? Now, we did touch upon this, but clearly communicating as part of a nursing course, it's a very vocational course. So Michelle, what is the sort of breakdown on that?
And I think what we've done this last year, academic year, since September, is have a kind of blended approach. So some of the lectures have been delivered kind of like on platforms such as this. And I can see Callum nodding. I'm hoping he's saying that that's a good thing. So things like the biology module that you can teach in this kind of way have been done like that. And I think the benefits of that is that they're all recorded and students can come back to them. They can watch them back for revision purposes, in bite-sized chunks. If for whatever personal reasons they've not been able to attend the live sessions, they've been able to catch up. And everybody passed that module first time. So I think that's a kind of good testament to how it was delivered. But of course, for nursing, you can't learn everything online, and a lot of it's around technical skills, and you have to be with people, and you have to use equipment, and you have to discuss things in classrooms. So we've been allowed to do that because it's been an essential part of the training. And I'm hoping, as the world gets back to normal, we'll be having a bit more of that and a bit less of the online. But I think we've learned quite a lot over the last year around some new ways of teaching that perhaps we'd never have considered before that have been beneficial. But you can't teach nursing all remote, quite simply.
And hence why we're building at the moment this brand new nursing suite, which is going to be in the main building here at the Croydon campus. So people do really get that feel of being on a proper ward with all of those challenges and facilities. And clearly you can't learn that on a Zoom call, can you? There's some things that Zoom just can't do. So as you say, a good mix of the two. Well, that's been really helpful. Let's introduce Jo again. So hi, Jo, you are the newly appointed head of nursing here at Croydon. Very excited to have you on board as part of the wider team. And I think you're going to share some stuff with us now. So over to you, Jo.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. It's lovely to meet you all. As has been said, my name's Jo Rickson, and I am the newly appointed head of nursing for the Croydon campus. So I am employed by Roehampton University. So that's how the programme is being run. I am an employee of Roehampton, and therefore delivering the Roehampton programme to you just on the Croydon campus site. So I've literally been in post 3 weeks and 1 day now. This is 3 weeks and day 2. So as you can see, I'm still really, really excited about it all. They were starting the building on the simulation centre yesterday. The builders were supposed to be stepping foot in and getting started. So I'm looking forward to going in later this week and seeing what they've done in the first couple of days. But yeah, it's all really exciting stuff at the moment. So, and I'm really looking forward to meeting some students on campus in September when you've all been recruited. So, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you a little bit of a taster of a sort of teaching session. I spent a bit of time thinking about this and thought, what should I do with them? What should I do with people? And I thought, well, you're all actually sitting there at the moment, possibly having to make a bit of a decision as to whether you're actually going to choose to come to Croydon and join me or whether you're not. So I thought I might help you work through that decision process. So here goes with working through critical thinking and making a decision. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Hopefully this presentation will come up. So there you go. So critical thinking and decision making. So what I'm going to go through is sort of just a little introduction as to sort of why critical thinking is relevant to you as a potential student and as a nurse going forward. And think a little bit about decision making and what that is. And then I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to help you make this important decision that you need to be making, as was said, very soon, because you need to confirm your decision by the 10th of June. So why is critical thinking important? Well, it is for you as a student. Potentially it's really important, but actually as a nurse, it's even more important to be able to think critically, because you're going to have lots and lots of decisions that you need to be making, lots of problems that you are going to need to solve effectively, because you are going to have the lives of people in your hands. And what happens to those people is going to be dependent on the decisions that you are making in the future. So it is really important that you've got the skills to be able to do that, which is why it's important for us as sort of teachers, lecturers, whatever role we're in sort of thing, to be sort of aiming to facilitate the learning of students so that you can actually become users of information, not just receivers. So we don't want you just soaking up all those stats and being able to just regurge stats back to us. Actually, what do those statistics mean? How many of you have been sitting there listening to the things for sort of all the COVID stuff recently on the television when they tell us how many people have had their immunisations, how many people have died, how many people have gone into hospital, and thought a little bit more deeply about what some of those numbers actually mean within the UK and things. So that's what we want you to be able to do, is actually critically think about those things. And that will actually help you to be more objective and hopefully in the future be able to present quite a well-constructed argument when trying to make decisions about care that you'll be delivering to the patients in the future. So what sorts of decisions we make? Actually, we're all having to face decisions every day. We're all making decisions every minute of the day, really. So it's from the point of view of what are you going to put on today? What were you going to wear for the day? What are you going to eat today? Yeah, whether you're going to take the bus to work or whether you're going to walk to work. Do you cross the road here at the crossing or do you cross the road further down the road? You are all making those decisions on a regular basis. We just don't tend to think about them so deeply nowadays because it's just something that we do normally. And as a nurse, you need to develop your skills so actually you can actually make nursing decisions at that sort of speed as well. Right, so as a nurse, you're going to be juggling lots and lots of different decisions. Things like, which patient am I going to go to first? Am I going to go to patient in bed 1 or bed 2? What medication do I need to give this patient? They're in pain. There's 6 different types of painkiller on the patient's drug chart. Which one do I think is the right painkiller for the pain that the patient's experienced at this point in time? Your patient's laying in bed. They need moving. Do I turn them onto their left side, their right side? Do I get them up out of bed and sit them in a chair? These are all decisions that you are going to need to be making. And it takes that critical thinking to help you answer those questions and make those decisions. But critical thinking is also about sort of thinking, we need to question what seems to be the normal answer all the time. So it's not just, this is the way that we do things and that's how we're going to do it. But it's also about getting you to think a little bit deeper and think, actually, is that the right way to do things? Is there a different way? Do I need to think about this differently? And all I'm going to pose to you is, if we'd have constantly believed that the world was flat, nobody would have ever realised that the world was round. Right? So because somebody kept questioning and questioning, eventually it was discovered that the world was round. Yeah, so just think about that you've got to constantly question things. And by taking a challenging approach, it helps you to develop your own knowledge. And it will help you to develop that constructive argument when you need to as a nurse going forward. So how are you going to make your decision? So when the decision needs to be made, when you need to think critically, what do you actually do? Well, you could just panic and hit the panic button, yeah. Or you could play rock, paper, scissors. I'm assuming everybody knows what rock, paper, scissors is. Or we could just flip a coin if we've only got two things to choose between. But actually, as a nurse, that probably is not the best way to be making those decisions. And to be able to present your decision to somebody and for it to be credible, you need to be able to justify those decisions that you're making. So there are actually sort of like numerous decision-making models that you could actually use. But I'm just going to introduce you to one of them. And this decision model is the TDODAR model. Now, some of you may have actually heard of this, and it's a quite common model to be used. It was actually used by pilots. And it was developed for pilots because of the fact that obviously if you're flying a plane and something goes wrong, you need to make a decision pretty quickly because it could be quite a catastrophic situation if they don't. All right. So the idea of using a framework is that it will sort of help reduce your panic, and it also helps reduce the risk of decision-making paralysis. And that's where we sort of like something happens and we just stand there thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And never actually do anything about it and wait for somebody else to come in and take over, which is not what we want to be doing when we're nurses. And as I say, we've got patients' lives in our hands and we need to be making a decision. So when we're thinking about using the TDODAR model, right, you need to be thinking about the fact that actually you need to be quite succinct with each of the stages because we do want to get this decision made quite quickly. You know? It is something that we want to sort of action relatively fast. Right? You've not got a week to decide which side you're going to roll your patient onto. All right, so we do need to be quite succinct with what we're doing. Sometimes it's useful to collaborate with other people, so getting other people to join you in that decision and having a discussion. But what is really important is actually if you are collaborating with other people, that actually you do all agree on what you're going to actually do. So once you actually make a decision about the action that you're going to take, you do all need to be agreeing on that action before you implement something. So if I talk you through this model, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through the model from a very general point of view and explain it to you to start with. But then I'm going to help apply it to the decision that you all need to be making to help you make your decision going forward. So the process is that, first of all, you need to think about the time. So how much time do you actually have to make your decision? Is it something we need to decide on now? Have you got sort of like minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, the rest of the day? But it's also about making sure that if you are collaborating with other people, that they all know what the time factor is as well, so that they know when a decision needs to be made by, so that you're actually all working towards the same time frame. You need to diagnose what's going on. So you need to make that sort of like, think about what's happening, identify what your problem is and the possible causes. And a way that's suggested about thinking about this is to actually use the 5-way technique. So the 5-way technique, if nobody's heard of the 5 ways technique, is that actually, first of all, you ask, why is this happening? And then what you do is you ask a few times, why is that? So it's why is this happening? And then why is that? But then why is that? And why is that? So you actually break it down and work out what is actually happening. So you've got all the different steps to a problem that you're trying to resolve so that you can try and come up with your best option. And then it's about identifying the options that you have available to you. Now, this might be that it's just a case of, you know what you need to do in this because this is what you've been trained to do. For instance, if you come across a patient that's collapsed, you know that the first thing you're going to do is you're going to shout for help. Yeah, didn't need to take a lot of thinking about that. You know it's got to happen now. You know what the diagnosis is. Your patient is collapsed, and the option is you shout for help because that's what you've been trained to do. But when it's something where you've got different options, then you need to work through those options and identify what they all are. And this is where sometimes having other people help you with making those decisions and brainstorming some of those options is quite useful. Once you've come up with all your options, and you then need to perhaps consider what the positives and the negatives are for each of them. So the pros and cons, identify if we did this, what might be the good thing here, but if we do that, what might be some of the negatives here, and start to weigh up some of those aspects to help you in making your decision. And then you need to make your decision. And if you're doing this as part of a collaboration with other people, then you all need to agree on that final decision so that you're all actually there together, supporting one another to get done what needs to be done. And then you need to act on it. So implement your decision. And it may be a simple, straightforward, do a task and that's it, dealt with, or it may be that there are numerous actions that need to happen over a period of time. You just need to all be aware of what those actions are and planning for those actions in the future. And a really significant part of this process, and probably the most important part from a student learner point of view, is actually about going back and reviewing things at the end. So actually, has everything gone to plan? Are you seeing the results that you were expecting? So then actually sort of like as part of that, learning from the experience. And that's where sort of like your critical thinking ability will develop as you grow, because if you go back and reflect on an experience and think about what went well, what didn't go well, what would I do again next time? Actually, when this same problem comes up again, you'll have a different perspective, different way of looking at it. So reviewing is a really important thing to be doing. So now I'm going to talk to you about the most important decision that you all need to be making at the moment. And I'm going to tell you the answer to your decision. You need to click confirm next to Roehampton University Croydon site. But I shouldn't really be sort of swaying you in that way at the moment, because you've got to make your decision. So when we think about the time frame, okay, you need to make your decision by the 10th of June. We all know that the 10th of June date is looming there. So make sure it's marked up on the calendar and you don't miss it, because you don't want to lose an offer if you've had one from us by then. The diagnosis is that you need to decide whether to accept your offer from the University of Roehampton to study your BSc Nursing at Croydon University Centre. So we know that's what the decision is that you need to be making. The options are that you can accept your offer from us, or you can accept your offer from an alternative university. And you need to consider, as I've said, you need to consider those pros and cons for each option. And each university will offer you different pros and cons. It may be that one is nearer to you for travelling in terms of coming onto campus to do your studies. It may be that the other one is nearer to you in terms of the providers that they use for placements. It may be that you have a friend at one university and not at the other. All these different things that you need to sit and think about. Which of these will actually suit me best for going forward? Because you're about to make a 3-year commitment. In fact, you're about to make a life commitment, because once you've started on your journey to being a nurse, it is a lifetime commitment. You then need to make your decision, to say the right decision for you. And then your action is for you to log into UCAS and make sure that you do confirm your first choice and your insurance choice for your studies going forward. And as I said, probably the most important part of this is about doing the review afterwards and what you've learned from the experience of making the decision that you've had to make. But the problem here is it's actually going to take you a while to know whether you've answered this one conclusively. Did you make the right decision? Only you can decide that as time goes on. But hopefully in 3 years' time, when you're standing there in your graduation robes, collecting your certificate as a qualified nurse, and putting on your staff nurse uniform and being called staff nurse for the first time, you will realise that you have made the right decision for you. So in summary, you need to make sure that as a student, that you recognise that you are a user of information and not just a receiver of information. We don't want to just spoon feed information to you that you can regurgitate onto a piece of paper. We want you to be able to put that information into practice in a number of different environments. And that is one of the exciting things about the programme at University of Roehampton, is because of the fact that actually their programme does focus across all the different areas of nursing, whereas lots of other universities do tend to focus very much on the in-hospital experience. We will be giving you the skills and showing you how you can apply that theory and skills in those different environments where nurses are working. We're all having to make decisions on a regular basis. And this is really important that you think about this going forward. And as I say, the TD-ODR framework is just one that can be used to support your decision making. There are lots of others out there. And if you want to explore it, then do have a look further. Just Google decision making tools, decision making models, and there will be lots of things that will come up for you to look at. And that's my presentation done. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Jo. That's very insightful, fascinating, actually. And actually, you know, who'd have thought that studying a nursing degree, obviously, you can completely understand why it does need, you know, to have all of these other elements. But actually, it is vocational, but it is really important that you have these other elements as well as part of it. Perhaps not something that everyone realizes, and actually that's, as you say, an important skill that we all need in life, no matter what we're doing and what decisions we're making. And clearly right now we are asking people to make decisions about their future, about what is the right course for them. And I just wanted to pick up on that point you made at the end around, you know, how the Roehampton nursing course is, you know, very, very encompassing of all elements, which presumably gives people a further choice to make later on in their career, because it will open up a much wider range of avenues that they might want to then move on to, having studied the initial course. Presumably they could then go on and specialise in all sorts of other areas.
Yeah, and the Roehampton course does give a real good flavour of nursing. There's always, I mean, I've been in nursing for many, many, many years. And there's always been this focus on the fact that nursing is something that happens inside hospitals. But actually, we know that that's not the case anymore. Nursing is not something that happens inside hospitals. In fact, actually, what nursing should be doing is stopping people from going into hospital. And there needs to be that greater focus on sort of what's happening outside of the four walls of a hospital. And I think the Roehampton course really does give sort of a real focus on that and give that flavour, so that newly qualified nurses can make those decisions and take up those posts outside of the hospital. I mean, when I trained, it was always said that you can't get a job as a district nurse when you very first qualify. You have to work in a hospital for at least 6 months or a year before you think about becoming a district nurse or a GP nurse or a health visitor. But actually now people are actually qualifying one day and starting sort of working in the community in district nursing and that sort of thing the next day. So yeah, a real shift in people's views on nursing and where nursing's happening these days.
And certainly we know that the emphasis both for us at Croydon and you at Roehampton Rashore, and in fact, you know, everywhere now is very much about, you know, this sort of careers not courses message, really. You know, actually thinking about where your learning is going to lead you in terms of a career. And clearly there are so many options if you take this degree course. It isn't sort of pigeonholing you into one particular box. No. There is a whole wealth of ways that you could go. And I'm guessing, and I'd like to bring Callum and Natasha in because they're very much on the ground of this at the moment. I'm assuming that when you think about studying nursing, you might not actually know an awful lot about, what the options are and where that might lead. Callum, can I bring in you here? Because, did you always know you wanted to study mental health as a specialism, or, how does it work for you at the moment, and what are you thinking about that?
I mean, when I came to deciding that I wanted to do nursing, mental health was definitely the area that I mainly focused on, because it's sort of how the brain works and, how these different disorders come to be, was always sort of really interested me. And also I've got quite a lot of interest in sort of the pharmacology side of mental health, which is why I want to go on to do sort of nurse prescribing and practitioner. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's taken me a while to sort of get to where I am now. When I first left school, I sort of went to college and I was doing a totally different course. Like I was doing musical theatre, then I went to theatre school, I was doing music, and then I finished a degree doing like a music course, and decided, I'm just going to do what I was going to do. I decided to come into nursing, but I think it's the best decision that I've made, to be honest. And like you say, there's so many options once you graduate, and once you're registered, like you can just go in so many different areas.
Great. And Natasha, bringing you in, because I know when we were talking earlier, you actually did an access course at Croydon College, didn't you? So tell us a little bit about your journey and where you hope it might lead you.
So yeah, I did the access to nursing and health sciences at Croydon College in 2019 to 2020. And previous to that, so I'm a mum of 4 children, and I had a massive break in my education. And I used to be a student midwife long ago in 2004, and I didn't complete the course. Lots of things happened in my life, just life sometimes happens, doesn't it? And I then went on to just bringing up my little babies, and I did some volunteering, and I ended up working in a adult hospice. And I think that's when things started to go, oh, actually, maybe I could do nursing. Maybe I really enjoyed that. And I think it was the realization that actually adults, just as much as children, are so scared when they're poorly and unwell, and they don't access the support they need. They're frightened. And I think it's so easy to box children into that category of, we need to give them lots of love and attention as healthcare professionals, but actually adults need exactly the same. And that's what drove me forward. So I fast forward a little bit to my access course. It was one of the very nice lecturers there that kind of swayed me back into nursing rather than going back to student midwifery. And I chose Roehampton actually because of the community aspect, that focus, and that's where I want to go within the community. I want to be a general practice nurse, and that's my focus and that's my drive. And I feel like I'm going to get all of that and more from the experience I've already had to where I am now, but also going forwards on the degree course itself. I feel like I'm collecting all these extra tools along the way already. And even in hospital placements that I've had one of, and I'm going to obviously have more of, I feel like there's so much to gain from that. Even if I do want to be a general practice nurse, I need to take every experience and soak it all up and use it. And you can use it everywhere. So I feel like, it's a process. It's a never ending process of learning and developing yourself, I find. And adult nursing, I think, just gives me that everything that I need really and want to do.
And how have you found going back to school with 4 children in the middle of a pandemic lockdown as well? That must have been hugely challenging. Hats off to you.
It was a bit mad. I do have 2 adult children, I might add, so they kind of look after themselves and actually help with the younger 2, which is great. So I'm in a privileged position. But yeah, it's tough going. But also I just feel like actually learning never ends. It doesn't matter how old you are. And actually being a mature student on the course, there's no difference in your age either. Like you're not sort of singled out as like really old or you can't talk to the really young people and, because that's not true at all. So I feel like actually it's just a fresh chapter for me. It's a massive benefit, and I feel like I'm really, really lucky right now, really enjoying it, and feel like there's no hold-ups at all. In actual fact, I think I've got a bit of an advantage because I've got life experiences.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. No, that's great. Is there any sort of like a top tip, I suppose, words of advice that you might want to give people who are at the start of their journey, probably thinking, I'll come to each of you, start of your journey, maybe watching this, thinking, goodness, there's a 10th of June deadline, I'm thinking I need to apply. What's the sort of the top sort of word of advice? Shall I come to you first, Michelle? Put you on the spot.
Yes, I was still on mute. I thought you were going straight to the students. So the last bits of advice for people that are undecided, or what?
Just anything really. We've heard about making decisions. It is a decision sort of point. They've got just over 3 weeks, actually probably 4 weeks virtually, isn't it? Until they've got to make that decision. Any other words of advice that you could offer, or suggestions that how they might?
I think if you're in two minds, just don't hold back. I think if you listen to what Natasha and Callum have said, they've both been on other journeys. They haven't come straight into nursing, and now they know the time's right for them. It's not about 18-year-old graduates from A levels. It's about our kind of cohorts are a complete mix of age groups, and we don't have enough males, never have enough men in nursing, so we're always trying to drive a few more chaps in. But we have 18-year-olds, we have right up into, I think one of our students is sort of around 60-ish, and everyone brings something different to the table, and we'll all make it really good nurses in the end. So I think, if you're deliberating, oh, shall I, shan't I, then just go for it, and kind of put your heart into it, and make sure that you choose the university that's right for you, which hopefully is Croydon. Otherwise you wouldn't be here to start with. I think just be confident, probably.
Okay, I'll come to you, Callum.
I think that what I'd probably say is just to really, look into the course and read about it and understand what that university is trying to offer to you. I think that what I see from a lot of student nurse forums is sort of everybody wants to go to the well-established sort of nursing universities, so like your Kingston and South Bank, and sort of like the ones that everybody wants to go to. But I know Roehampton are not up there yet, but I think they definitely will be, because honestly, they've just, they've given us so many tools already. And I just feel like from what I've heard from a lot of experiences of other universities, that we get so much in comparison, and a lot of them are quite jealous of what we get in terms of what happens on our course. Not to sway anyone's decision, but I think just really sort of weigh up the course, and sort of have sort of in your head maybe an idea of what you'd want to do and where you'd want to go with it, and explore different options to sort of make sure that uni's catering to what you want to do.
I guess a lot of it is around, obviously location, and the type of environment you want to learn in. I know, maybe bring Joe back in here, but I know, from Croydon's point of view, Croydon is a very niche university campus. It, only has 5 key BA courses, very sort of specialist in that way, and obviously much smaller in terms of the numbers of people that you have. Now, that's not for everybody, but for a lot of people it works well, and obviously at a time when a lot of people are maybe not wanting to commute as far, actually being able to maybe study closer to home is going to be an advantage for many people. Joe, what's yours? And also it's a brand new course with brand new facilities. It's exciting to be part of the first cohort of nursing at Croydon. Joe, just bring you in here on that?
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? I think the thing about Croydon is that it is exciting, it is new, it is going to be all new facilities and everything. The university centre there itself is sort of nice, modern. It's a lovely environment to be in. I've really enjoyed the few days that I've actually had that opportunity to go into the building and get to meet people. You really get, even though there's not that many students around at the moment in the university centre section, actually you get a real buzz, a real feel that actually you are part of a family. And I think sort of with the small cohort that we're going to have there to start with, it will be such a nice sort of like group to work with. You will feel that you're part of a family. And have that support from each other. And I think sort of on a nursing programme, sort of it is going to be difficult. It's not a walk in the park. It is a difficult programme to do. And I think sort of like what Natasha and Callum were saying earlier about their finances and that they've been all right there, but some students do struggle and have to have part-time jobs and things as well as trying to do their studying. So being local and that will help support some of that, not having the expenses of having to travel so far and things. So I think there's lots of real positives about the building and the opportunity that there is there going forward.
And just to be clear, what is the cohort numbers that are planned for the first year?
For the first cohort, we're planning a group of 40 for this September. So yeah, nice.
How does that compare to a typical cohort, say at Roehampton currently?
I think for the last September intake, you had somewhere in the region of about 100 students.
Yeah, it was just below that. So we started off with 90 and a couple have kind of dropped off along the way for personal reasons. But I think could I just chip in with something I think is important here?
Yeah.
So if I wind the clock back 2 years when we were starting our first cohort at Roehampton, there were kind of a handful of students that said, I'm a bit sceptical. I don't want to come and be a guinea pig on, in somewhere brand new. And I think what they didn't realise was that all of the lecturers had already been teaching in other universities. We all came with a lot of experience and we used our practice partners quite a lot to deliver the teaching as well. So by no means were you a guinea pig. And we said to the students, would you like to be part of a cohort of 30 or do you want to go to a bigger uni and be part of a cohort of 300 where you wouldn't get the individualised support? And I think that's just it has to be for you, but I think that's kind of a key thing to hold on to.
I think so. And I think, what I'll just add about that is that, it is a very caring environment, very supportive at Croydon because it is small, because it is niche. And actually, the lecturers do have time because they don't have huge numbers to deal with. So I think, that's going to be a really important part. Sorry, Joe, you were going to come in.
No, I was just going to say, I was just going to agree with what Michelle had said there and sort of, yes, as I introduced myself at the beginning, I've only been there at Croydon for 3 weeks, but I mean, I was a lecturer at another university for 15 years in nursing before I came to Croydon, and I was a nurse in the NHS for 20 years before that. So that is how old I am. But, so yeah, I mean, it's not as though it's somebody that's just walked in off the street to deliver the programmes at Croydon. It will be sort of people that have got that experience that can make sure that people do get the learning that they should do as a student nurse. So yeah,
no, it's very, 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 very exciting. Natasha, sort of final few words from you, really. I mean, you've studied at Croydon as well, and now you're studying at Roehampton. You've seen both sides, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both, I guess.
Yeah, I would just say though, to finalise, when you consider where to go and what to do and how to do it, like be a little bit selfish as well, because I think that sometimes we always have people around us that are like, oh, could you do that? Could you be a nurse? Could you blah, blah, blah? And, you might have children, you might have people that you care for and you're struggling to fit everything else in. But in actual fact, I think that you have to be selfish sometimes and say, hang on, I want a shot at this. This is my time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm really going to focus on me and do something for me. And I think it's really important to take your time in that. Look at what you want, not what other people want around you, and what would be best for you, as well as the family members, etc., that are around you. But yeah, think of yourself. And I'm kind of jealous actually, because our simulation suite at Roehampton is amazing. So to know that Croydon have a lovely brand spanking new simulation suite, like it's going to be great. Honestly, ours is brilliant. I mean, the detail is brilliant. Even on the pill bottles where we do medicines management, it's all the Roehampton Hospital ward labelling with the head of nursing as the consultant, for example, on the plans. And I just think, oh, that's brilliant. It's just it's immersive and it's fun. So yeah, take your time, be yourself, and enjoy the process as well. Enjoy it. It is fun. It's all fun.
That's great. Good to hear. And there is a question, I think Callum is typing, but Joe, maybe one for you. Typical timetable when you're not on a placement, how is that going to work? Is it possible to give a bit of insight?
Get myself. Obviously, at the moment, we're still sort of waiting on the government guidance to sort of like really give us a real steer on where we stand from a social distancing point of view in terms of bringing people back into university and delivering classes. But as Michelle said earlier on, we have been bringing student nurses onto the various campuses, different universities sort of thing, because of the practical nature of the programme. So there will be definitely an expectation of coming into campus one day, if not 2 days, with some virtual learning across at least another 1 or 2 days across the week. So it is a full-time programme, but we will be aiming to try and bring people into campus as much as we can going forward, recognising that, as we said, that it is about that sort of building relationships with people and developing communication skills and everything that you need to learn as a nurse that you're not necessarily going to get so well just doing all virtual learning.
We're all holding our breath in the hope that by September we will all just allowed
back to normal.
Back to normal. It's looking quite good at the moment, but you never know. But whatever happens, I think, what's been proven over the last year, both at Roehampton and Croydon, is you can still learn through a pandemic, and certainly hearing from Callum and Natasha, they're proof that you can still get on and enjoy. And it's been fantastic hearing from both of you. I think it's really important that people do get the chance to hear from, people who are actually on the course. It's very easy for us to sit here and say it's wonderful, but actually for you to come on and say it's been valuable, I think it's been really helpful. So thank you very much to Callum and Natasha for giving up your time. Callum, I think are you in the library at Roehampton? So hence why he's got his mask on, following the rules, which is perfect. But thanks, really a huge thanks to both of you. Thanks also to Joe and Michelle. If you do join and you apply, I'm sure you'll be hearing more from probably both of you through the process of applications, and if you're successful, you'll clearly have a lot to do with Joe when you join us in September. So I just want to wish everybody who has been watching, and if you're not watching live, you're watching this as a recording, thanks for taking the time to look at this. There is a wealth of information on both the Croydon University Centre website and obviously the University of Roehampton website, and I would encourage you to take a look at that, as well as some other videos and some other information. There is just one other question that's just popped in, I've noticed. What does the structure of the course look like? I know it's a combination of in-class practicals, but is it going to be lecturer for a year and practicals for next year? I think that's not the case. That's what we've been discovering. Is that right? Joe, do you just want to come and quickly Michelle, reiterate that one, Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a complete mix. So you have blocks of theory and blocks of placement. So you're never doing both at the same time. But when you're in your theory, you're doing practicals and and theory and skills and all that kind of thing combined. Group work, seminars, big lectures. So yeah, you don't do it's not done in big blocks like that.
So it's really varied by the sounds of it.
Very varied.
Very mixed, and that's great. Okay, well, thanks very much. I just want to give a mention to what's happening for the rest of the day. We have later today at 2:30, we have a session on the Diploma in Education and Training Level 5. So if anyone wants to catch up on that, that will be happening at 2:30. And then we have the advice and support session between 4 and 5. Now, just to reiterate, those of you that are watching live, that's a really good opportunity. If you've got specific questions related to your personal circumstances, whether that be in needing additional support, or whether that be financial, or social, and if you have any disabilities that you need to discuss, and also the admissions team will be available as well. It's a really good opportunity. We'll send you off into one-to-one meeting rooms so you can have sort of private conversations about your own particular circumstances. Do take that opportunity if you are considering applying and you've got some concerns. That's a great way of just understanding a bit more about that. And then for the rest of the week, we are going through the other courses that are on offer here at the Croydon University Centre. So Wednesday, we have business and management. Thursday, we have the H&C construction and engineering, and Friday, criminology, psychology and social justice. So hopefully you found this session informative. As I say, do go to the website, find out more information on that. Huge thanks again to Joe, to Michelle, Natasha and Callum. Wish Natasha and Callum loads of luck. Doesn't sound like you need it. It sounds like you're well on the way to getting to where you need to get to. So well done to both of you, and good luck to everyone who's watching with your application. Remember that deadline, June 10th is when you need to get your application in by, and then you can obviously apply through the clearing process if you miss that deadline. Thanks again for watching, and we hope to see you all soon. Goodbye.